All right, men, welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages, how to develop more empathy for your wife. So if your wife's saying, man, you just don't have much empathy, or, maybe you're just realizing, yeah, I really don't connect much with the emotions of others. I don't seem to really care that much. I tend to tell people to just kind of deal with it and buck up. Um, this episode's for you. High achieving men, we go here a lot. We kind of have a hard time accessing emotions in ourselves. That makes it hard to access them in others. And that's what empathy is. So today you're going to learn some great tools and skills to do that. My name is Mike Frazier, MD. I'm a psychiatrist and marriage coach, and I help high achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. So guys from wins from guys in my program this week. So guys they're doing this. They're sharing emotions at a deeper level, both on their side, being able to share what's going on with them better, their thoughts and feelings better, and also their wives are opening up to them more. Because these guys are being a lot less judgmental, being a lot more open, learning to listen better, they're developing this deep emotional intimacy, which is so cool to see. Guys are spending time together as a family. In some situations, it had been a while since they had done stuff together with their wife, with their kids, and the guys are spending that time and having it be really positive, really powerful. Guys that are separated or have an in-home separation or things like that, or making those family times happen, which is so amazing, so cool to see. Guys are having courage to have difficult conversations. So, guys come into the program where, yeah, things are okay in the marriage, but they just want them better. And a lot of times, what has happened is the guy is having a hard time bringing up difficult things like money, sex, in-laws, parenting, religion, housework, or time. Doesn't quite have the skills to do it. Kind of afraid to do it. So guys are doing it. They're having these conversations and moving the relationship forward in really powerful ways. Guys are having increased emotional and physical intimacy. A lot of times, guys, another good reason to practice empathy is, it does tend to lead to more physical intimacy when you have that mental and emotional intimacy, which you'll learn some of those skills today. For me this week, a lot more hugs and kisses from Elizabeth. It was something I had kind of shared with her was important to me, and it's been great. She honored that request, and it's been a lot of fun for me. So, as far as what you're trying now to have empathy, so first we need to define it. So, lots of definitions. The the Greek word means like in a suffering. So you're like in suffering with somebody. So feeling with them. Sympathy from the Greek word suffer together. But for the purposes of this podcast, it's really just being able to relate to the emotions of others in a caring way, and even being able to feel what they feel. So really being in another person's shoes is another way to put that. Really kind of experiencing things as they experience it. To me, empathy is really a spiritual experience. It's almost like you connect soul to soul when you have that real empathy with somebody where you can really understand what they feel and you get it and it just hits you. Um, I see it happen with guys when we're talking, and they come in there. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I guess I could see that. Their wife's saying, "You just don't listen to me," and they're like, "Yeah, maybe, but I feel like I really do listen a lot." And then we kind of go for a while and try different things until you can see it happen. You can see it happen on their face and in their body, where they're just like, "Oh, yeah, that would be hard to feel like your husband never listened." Or like for me, one of the stories I shared, kind of feel like, oh shoot, like I have, kind of not listened, but also kind of throw my wife under the bus a lot in our marriage. And man, how'd that probably make her feel rejected, um, abused again, feel like she didn't have a way out, that kind of thing. Like when you really get it, you just feel different. It's like a spiritual experience. So that's what we're really going for. Um, but I kind of getting ahead of myself. A lot of times we're not trying it that way. We're just trying like, oh yeah, I heard on this podcast I should just reflect back onto emotion. Oh, you probably felt sad when that happened, or oh, you probably felt mad when that happened. But you're not actually like in their experience. So maybe you're trying that. Maybe your wife even told you, hey, you don't have much empathy. She just told you straight up. Um, And maybe you're kind of noticing and you kind of agree with that. You're like, yeah, man, I don't really care about other people's emotions that much. And I don't really like that, but I'm not sure what to do about it. Maybe you've read something about narcissism and how, it's hard for narcissists to have empathy. And that's kind of scary for you. You're like, ooh, I don't like that idea. And maybe your wife's throwing that at you too. Like, hey, narcissists don't have empathy. You're a narcissist. You're not, if you're listening to this podcast. Not to say you don't have narcissistic traits, which like lack of empathy is one, but there's reasons for it, and we'll go into that. There is hope for you. It's not a lost cause or anything. It's a skill you can learn. Empathy is a skill you can learn. The other thing you're probably trying right now is taking more of this kind of like a buck up and deal with it approach to emotions. So, your kid comes home mad. Hey, don't act like that. Don't yell at us. Don't yell at your mom. Stop that. Your kid's anxious. Well, just, deal with it. Your kid's sad. Deal with it. Stuff happens. You got to move on. Keep moving forward. Right. And it's not coming from a bad place. Like that approach is probably what was taught to you and probably what you've kind of taken on as a high achieving guy. Like, yeah, just deal with it. Right. Just don't worry about those emotions and just kind of shut them down. Right. The reason why you're taking that approach and why you espouse it and why you're teaching it and why I used to really take this approach a lot too is it does work well in a lot of areas like work, sports, school. If you get caught up in emotions or overly emotional, this is what a lot of guys are afraid of, is if they start letting emotions be there, they're going to be like too much for them. Maybe they've seen parents or other people get too caught up in emotions, and so it's scary for them to think they could go there too. But there is some truth to it that if you get like overly emotional, like at work, if you're giving a presentation, you just break down and start crying. Yeah, maybe that won't lead to getting a promotion, or you're so anxious that you can't talk to a client, right? Yeah, that probably will cause some issues. And so a lot of us go too far though. And we're just kind of like, okay, I'm just not going to even have emotions. And so again, you can be pretty productive and pretty effective and you can get a lot done, especially if you're in a field where it's a lot more logical and procedural. I work with doctors and, surgeons, which a lot of that is just up here, right? You don't want to get too emotional with that. It's very technical and you want to be there, right? So it serves you well at work. Businessmen, business owners, that is a little bit more of an emotional thing, but you can't get too caught up in it. You can't get like so disappointed that you stop working, or so excited that you invest in something crazy and blow all your money, right? So you do have to kind of have a level head. But what can happen is you can just shut it down too much, and now you don't really understand your own emotions, and so then it's hard to relate to the emotions of others. So to kind of test yourself on this, I want you to just answer this question. What emotions did you have today? How many emotions can you name that you had today? So for me, there were moments today I felt disappointed. There were moments today I felt loved. There were moments today that I felt pressure. There were moments today that I felt excited. There were moments today when I felt sad. There were moments when I felt even depressed. There were moments when I felt excited and energized and motivated. So I probably couldn't have done that even like a few months ago, just like name that many emotions. But if you're like, oh, I felt fine today, or I felt good, you're like most guys. But what that says is you don't really know what's going on with you emotionally. Okay. And so if you can't really name any, or you can name like, oh, I was fine, or I was mad one time, it's going to be hard for you to have empathy, because to feel with someone, you sort of need to know how it feels in yourself too. So if you don't know how it feels in yourself, it's going to be hard for you to relate to your wife saying, oh man, that made me feel really anxious. And you just don't have a reference point for what it feels like to feel anxious. Okay. Even though you probably feel anxiety, you just don't tune into it. You don't really notice it. So what do you need to do? So you want to start noticing your own emotions. All right. So I really strongly recommend an app called How We Feel, developed by some guys over at Yale. It's outstanding, just really good. So you can set it to remind you to check in with your feelings a couple of times a day. And then there's just, you kind of have 4 quadrants: high energy, pleasant; high energy, unpleasant; low energy, pleasant; low energy, unpleasant. You kind of click into that. And then you choose from like this big, wide array of emotions. And when you click on it, it kind of explains, okay, here's what disappointed means versus sad. What is the difference between those two? And then you can start clicking through and understanding it and noticing. It has you kind of track too, okay, where was I, what was happening, kind of take some notes about it. So really powerful. Really powerful app, really powerful way to start building your own emotional vocabulary, your own emotional intelligence. So as you do this, you're going to start to see that you experience a lot of emotions in a day, and they're not all the same. You're going to have a range. So like in the app, is, for example, relaxed, chill, and comfortable were all separate emotions. Disengaged, fatigued, apathetic were all separate emotions. So what's the difference between those? And so honestly, like, I'm not the expert here. I'm learning, through this app a lot, what my own emotions are. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what those are, but I'm looking forward to going into the app and understanding the difference between, some of those. So, as you notice your own emotions, you're going to be able to spot them in others, see them, but also know how that feels. Oh, I know how it feels to feel fatigued. I know how it feels to feel apathetic. I know how it feels to feel sad, right? I, I, I think it's helpful to kind of pare it down to core emotions at first, like, oh, I felt sad, or I felt happy, or I felt angry, I felt anxious. Those are kind of the core ones that we can feel discussed. But again, this app's really good. So once you get better at acknowledging your own feelings, okay, that's when you're going to try to step into the shoes of your wife and others, like your kids. So the thing is, even if you don't agree with their perceptions or ideas, if you believe those ideas, how would you feel? So there's a really funny video called "It's Not About the Nail." If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's funny, but the wife has a nail in her head, and she's like, "Oh, I have all this pressure. I have, my sweater keeps snagging when I put it on." It's funny stuff. And the guy's like, "Yeah, you got a nail in your head. Maybe you should take that out." And she's just like, "You don't listen. You don't care." And then finally, the guy's like, "Oh, that must be really hard." And she's like, "Yes, thank you." you because that is what she's looking for. Okay, she's looking for you to understand. So you don't always have to fix it, first of all. Um, but also sometimes it can be, so your wife can come to you and say stuff like, "Oh yeah, the kids, they just never listen. They like you better than me." Just something that you really don't agree with. But you're going to get a lot farther if you just try to step into her shoes a little bit first, right? Just try to say, "Man, yeah, that would feel bad to feel like kids listen to me more than you." Um, but don't just say it. Really try to get into it. Really try to feel what that would feel like. So again, kind of like I started the episode, there's this noticeable shift that I can see in guys and that I can feel in myself, and I can kind of feel with them too, where they kind of get it. They kind of get what's going on with their wife. They kind of understand. Oh, yeah, that must feel really lonely to have a husband that doesn't really listen. That was probably really hurtful when I, you know, didn't show up to her birthday, when I didn't get her birthday present. That probably did feel. She probably felt really lonely. She probably felt really rejected in that moment. They soften. You can sense it. You can feel it. You can probably hear it in my voice a little bit, that there's a difference, right? When you genuinely feel that versus when you're just saying, "Oh yeah, that probably made you feel sad," like you're, you know, Siri or something, right? You're This is a spiritual experience. I really believe that it's a spiritual experience of empathy. So pray for help, right? Learn your emotions and just like really try to get into her experience. That is what your wife's looking for when she says, "Yeah, I just want you to listen." It's not just that, she would love for you to really get it, really kind of understand really soften and see, wow, yeah, that would be difficult, and just be with her in it, and feel with her, be with her, feel that emotion with her. Okay, that's powerful. Okay, and that's what empathy is. So sometimes it can be kind of hard with your wife. Like you might be harboring a lot of resentment towards her for all kinds of things. Um, in the program, we work a lot with that, and what helps you become less resentful and that kind of thing. But if it's kind of hard to do with your wife, just think, how do you feel when you see a child hurting, or like an animal hurting, right? That's the softening you're looking for. Like, oh man, yeah, that's got to hurt, right? Um, and then it makes you want to kind of comfort that child or comfort that person. So again, if you kind of, it's hard to picture with your wife right now, just picture, oh yeah, I do kind of feel that softening if I saw, a kid hurt or that kind of thing. Um, yeah. And man, if it's hard for you to even do that, then your emotions are probably really shut down. And so it's time to start tuning in to your emotions a little bit more, and maybe like look to some of your past experiences too and how those might be affecting you. So the reason this works, and the reason this works to develop empathy and really deepen the emotional intimacy in your marriage, is as your wife sees that your emotional intelligence is growing and that you're taking the time to get into her shoes and really feel with her. Again, like that's what empathy is about, feeling with her, being with her in that emotion. Man, I tell you, she's going to feel so much safer and so much more open to share it with you. I see this every day in the program when guys can really do this. Man, it opens up miracles in the level of intimacy that happens in their marriages. Um, the other thing that's cool is you'll start becoming a lot less judgmental of other people's emotions, and less judgmental of yourself as you just start letting your own feelings be there instead of judging them. Yeah, I do feel sad sometimes. Yeah, I do feel anxious. Sometimes I do feel inadequate. Sometimes I do feel sad, right? That's okay. You know, so when you're okay with feeling those things, it's easier for you to let other people feel those too, right? So again, this is the key to emotional intimacy. Intimacy, knowing and being known. So to be known in your emotions, you have to know your own emotions, right? And to know hers, right? It helps to know your own so you can relate to hers. Okay. All right. So skills you need is, again, I believe this is a spiritual practice of empathy, really being able to get into someone's experience. Really, that's what Jesus did for us. He came down so he could understand everything we go through and really be able to say, yeah, I get it. I've been there. There's the campaign going on right now. He gets us. There's something powerful about that when someone really understands us. And so, we can channel that through God and develop this skill. It takes mental strength to be able to kind of put aside your own thoughts and opinions and try to get into your wife's. It takes emotional strength and maturity. That's probably the biggest thing here. Communication skills, being able to listen well, reflect well. But again, it's not so much saying the right words. The right words sort of come when you're genuinely feeling with that person, when you're like spiritually in tune with that person. Okay. So come and join us in Strong Men, Strong Marriages. We'll teach you how to do this. We'll build these skills together. We'll grow these strengths and skills, and create stronger marriages across the world. That's what we're doing. We'd love to have you be part of it. So come visit strongmen.io or visit the link in the show notes. And you'll fill out an application, and we'll get going and help you create this marriage that you're looking for. So, all right, man, stay strong, and we will see you next episode.